So how does it feel to bring the apocalypse to a whole world finally, instead of just to two characters?
Someone pointed that out in the interviews in the other room, which is, what is it with your obsessions with apocalypses?
I love it. Keep doing
And
it.
no, I know, but funny enough, like, it never occurred to me until just this minute that, like, I sure do like apocalypse a lot. And that is clearly why I'm so damaged and broken inside. No, but this one, this was the impulse of this one is in so many ways. This one is actually the anti-apocalypse story, and because I was just really interested in a show that was really about hope and rebirth, and really the impulse of the show was I wanted to do a really mythic quest, like I wanted to do Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, and I wanted heroes and swords and good and evil and just a journey, which is those movies, but it's also the Odyssey, it's also Wizard of Oz. It's one of the great stories of just a hero going on a quest, and I wanted to tell that story. So part of it just comes down to what's a setting no one's seen before for that. And we were really kicking around, no one wanted to do like that sort of Stonehenge Lord of the Rings thing. And we wanted to set it in, sort of an American landscape. And so it was with working with Bad Robot, because we were just kind of kicking around, okay, what would cause something to transform like that? And we were like, nuclear war, or disease, or zombies, or whatever sort of the usual house numbers are. And we stumbled onto, if we just flip the power off, it would do this. And that was amazing, because it brought a whole new level of a very compelling what if, because who among us hasn't been unbelievably frustrated with a 5-minute blackout, much less a permanent one, or when your computer freezes, like that tension you get in your body, and that we're so, everyone feels it, I believe, deep down, of how over-reliant we are on this technology, and how separated we are from our food and water supplies. I mean, it's not just about convenience, like, it's dangerous how separated we've become from what it takes to actually survive. And so a story that was about that too is just, I think that's something that's really relatable. I think everyone can picture what they would be like in this world. And to answer your question, in case you ask, my move would be a concubine. Because I've got no survival skills whatsoever, so my only move is to find someone strong and to be in their harem. So that's my plan.
Can you talk a little bit about the rules of the TV show, as far as, because it seems like it's not like just the power went off, at least for the pilot, engines aren't working.
Yeah, it's one, I like to come up with, genre, it's a Richard Matheson quote that any good fantasy is 98% reality. So we only come up with one fantastic element, and that is no electricity, and of any kind. So that means that basically anything that throws a spark or runs through a circuit doesn't work. And everything cascades out from that. So the reason car engines don't work is because really, if you could, any car past, I think it's like 1966, has electric components that it wouldn't work without. Never mind the fact that even throwing spark plugs and sparks coming from that, which is why engines don't work. Solar panels don't work for that same reason, because they generate electricity. So anything that, for whatever, and a reason that we have an answer and we'll explain, and God willing we get picked up for a bunch of seasons and we'll reveal, but what has been inhibited is the ability of electricity to flow. And so because of that rule, everything flows out of that.
I know with Supernatural you said you had 5 years planned out. How far ahead do you have this one planned out?
This one, okay, yeah, I know I'm sort of infamous for this 5-year plan, which is all well and good until you get to the 6th year.
Right.
And so for this one, this was about, in a very, coming up with this idea was actually in a lot of ways a very specific reaction to that, and that I very specifically wanted to tell a story that was about an entire world. And this is a whole world. And I have a story planned for the Monroe Republic, which is the country that this story currently takes place in. But in North America, in the back of my head, I know that there's 5 other countries. And then there's overseas, and then there's Canada. I mean, it's wherever you want this story to go. it's a whole world and it's nothing but horizons to explore, so that there's really endless amounts of story, and I don't shoot myself in the foot like an idiot like I did last time.
And now that you do have two shows, you still have Supernatural on the air. How is it difficult to kind of?
Well,
you have to
luckily,
separate yourself?
luckily, Supernatural, there are amazing people at the helm of that. I mean, Bob Singer, who has been there from the very first minute, and now Jeremy Carver, who was really one of our best writers, who sort of left. He was sort of like in the family business, and then he like left to go off, and then he came back to join the family business again, and he's in such excellent. The show's in such excellent hands with them that, honestly, at this point, I'm mostly just a cheerleader, and because it ain't broke, and so I'm not fixing it, and so it is. It's a little bit like watching my child go off to college, and just being very, very proud of them.
In the pilot, we find out that all isn't as scenes as far as the electricity going out. Is that something we'll be getting answers throughout the season, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, it's my style that I like a really vibrant and forward-moving mythology. I like moving the ball forward. I don't like teasing. I like to create a lot of mystery, of course, but I also like to answer questions. Somewhere riding that line right before people become frustrated, and that. But we have the answers, and the answers will, I think it's always fine to answer a question. It's always, the answers lead to new questions, and so we'll do that. And so the drive to turning the power on is a big part of the show, but it's a really character-driven show, and it's a really emotional show. And so for me, the drive to reunite their family and to get Charlie to get her brother back is just as important as turning the power on, because I can relate to I'm fighting for my family. It's a little harder to relate to I'm going to turn on a national grid. And it's not that it's not important to the mythology, and it's not that the mystery isn't really important, but at the end of the day, this is a show about characters and family.
At what point, when there's been a few recasting, at what point do you decide you're going to recast the show?
The
writing, is it?
It's usually like when you're watching the pilot film, and it's always like a really difficult and tricky process, because the actors who were recasting did such a wonderful job and were so committed, but it's you watch the film, and for whatever reason you realize that you're taking the character in a different direction, or the character is going to become a slightly different person than who you thought they were going to be, and so therefore the actor who you originally had in mind for them don't necessarily work out anymore. But that's no fault of the actor or the amazing job that they did. It's just unfortunately the reality that this is always television is just always a work in progress.
Are you going to be reading the whole pilot, or just reshooting certain scenes?
No, I think there's one or two scenes that we're reshooting. That's all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.